God, there will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, still I will praise you, still I will praise you. I can see the light. Yeah, I can see the light that is coming for the heart that holds on. There will be an end to these troubles, but until that day comes, still I will praise you, still I will praise you. Oh no, you never let go, through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go, every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. Oh no, you never let go, through the calm and through the storm. Oh no, you never let go, every high and every low. Oh no, you never let go, Lord, you never let go of me. Lord, you never let go of me.
Good morning, church. It's so nice to have people like here worshiping with us. It's awesome. It's awesome. But we're also thankful for, this building, again, is just brick and mortar. We're the church. We're the church. The people are the church. So whether you're here inside of the building or you're at home worshiping with us, we are so glad to be able to just be together as a body, worshiping our Creator and our God, who loves us so much and has promised us so much. And we need to just trust in Him and have faith over fear. Please continue to worship with us. I need you more, oh, more than yesterday. I need you more than words can say. I need you more than ever before. I need you, Lord. I need you, Lord. More than the air I breathe, more than the song I sing, more than my next heartbeat. Oh, more than anything. And Lord, as time goes by, I will be by your side, 'cause I never want to go back to my old life. I need you more than yesterday. I need you more than words can say. I need you more than ever before. You may be seated.
What's going on, Lehigh Acres? It is so great to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for worshiping with us. If you are online meeting with us, thank you for joining us and worshiping with us. You know, we are the church, right? We are the church, whether we are in this building, whether you are at home worshiping with us. We are the place where God desires to dwell. And I just love what's going on right now. I love what God is doing. I'm so excited that we are able to gather in this capacity today and this place that God is pushing us into. It's just so awesome, so incredible. So I'm really excited for another great reason. So last week you heard me share a little bit about the 1,200 meals that we were able to distribute to Veterans Park Academy of Arts on behalf of the Servants of Christ Mobile Food Pantry. Well, this week, we were able to get an additional 5,800 meals out into the community. We got 2,400 to Alva School. We got 3,400 to Veterans Park. So God is doing something, and I'm just so excited that He's pulling us along for the ride. We are willing, we are here, hands are open. God's putting together some great things. The next step is we're going to be opening a food pantry here on site to be able to reach out into our community even farther. This week, I also received an email from Mary Blackman, the principal over at Veterans Park, and she had some district officials that were there, and they saw these boxes, and they saw what was going on, and she just wanted to thank us, number one, but she said, Nick, I just want to let you know that these boxes are addressing a huge need in our community right now, and what you've done has reached every corner of the community that we serve. And so, I mean, I'm just amazed by what's going on. And you guys are supporting this through your prayers, through your giving, through all of those things. So know that we've got a lot of work to do. And I'm really excited about what's coming up, what's next. So the next thing, today's Mother's Day, right? Like, that's really exciting as well. We should give our moms a little bit of honor, right? We should celebrate them a little bit. And, I mean, after all, we are the reason that they have to cross their legs when they sneeze, otherwise they pee themselves. So, I mean, it's pretty important that we honor these women that brought us into life. And so I thought I would do so by sharing a little poem, not one that I wrote, because Lord knows you don't want that. But there is a pretty epic Mother's Day poem in the Bible. And so I thought this would be a great place for us to just hear that. And this is a great prayer for us to pray over our moms, and it's found in Proverbs 31. So you'll find Proverbs 31 is introed with the sayings of King Lemuel, an oracle his mother taught him. And the first 9 verses are this oracle, and we can sum it up this way. It is, don't drink, smoke, or chew, or go with girls that do, right? Like, that's it. That's the first 9 verses of this. And then we get to Lemuel's response. For this woman, this mother that has brought him up and has taught him all the ways. And so here's how this goes. Pick up verse 10, Proverbs 31. A woman of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servant girls. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise, and they call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is praised. Give her the reward she has earned, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. What an incredible poem that this king writes on behalf of his mother. And you know, I kind of wonder what he's thinking through, like what's that thing that has really led him to write this? And so what do you think about when you think about your mom or mothers in general? You probably have a lot of different thoughts that roll around. And I poured over this a lot. Like, what do we think about when we think about mothers? And I summed it up to 2 words: stretch marks. Maybe this wasn't the appropriate sermon for live people here, so you can throw things at me. But I think about stretch marks in a lot of different variations because stretch marks have depth and have meaning and have purpose and tell a story. And you just got to bear with me through this one. So we recognize a few things when we think about stretch marks. And the first thing that we have to recognize is that stretch marks are marks of conflict. There's a lot of conflict that goes into them, right? Because if you're a woman and you've got them, you don't want them, right? You do whatever you can to try to get rid of them. But then on the other side of the coin, there are many women who don't have them that desperately wish they did. Because they've been able to conceive, they've been able to bear a child of their own. But stretch marks aren't just the physical either. Stretch marks are mental and emotional, and there are so many other aspects of this conflict that we have to recognize. But what does conflict do? It tells a story. And so these marks of conflict, they testify to a life well lived and to a story that is being well told. And I know many of us might be wrestling with stretch marks of a different sort right now, right? Like 6 years of quarantine that we've been in, and bags of Oreos and Doritos and Cheez-Its and, you know, all of those things. And so we're getting past that right now, which is a great thing. But I really believe this is what Lemuel was thinking of too, because if you look at verse 10, look at what he says. He says, "A woman of noble character who can find?" There's conflict in this. And you find that, interestingly enough, last week we talked a little bit about a woman by the name of Ruth. And if you look at Ruth, chapter 3, verse 11, do you know what Ruth is called? She's called a woman of noble character. But there's something more intriguing, deeper in this thought of noble character. This can be translated in a bunch of different ways. In fact, the better way that this is translated is mighty and strong. When you look at the term that's used here for noble character, it's actually a military term. It's a term that would be used for great warriors. You ever think of your mom as a great warrior? Or that mom that's in your life as a great warrior? This is exactly what King Lemuel is thinking of. And you know, when we think about great warriors in the line of this series that we've been in, it takes us right to the next name that's on our list in the genealogy of Jesus. We've taken a look at Tamar, and we've taken a look at Rahab the prostitute, and we've taken a look at Ruth the Moabitess, and now we get to this next name, and what you find is not a woman's name, but you find this is how it's written. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother had been Uriah's wife. This woman's name doesn't even make it into the genealogy, but her thought does. When you think about this man Uriah, he was considered one of David's mighty men. He was a great warrior. He was what was called in the circle of David's 30. These would have been the warriors closest to him, the generals, the guys that fearlessly went out to battle. And when you needed something done, it was one of these 30 that David would call on. And this is this mighty warrior, Uriah. And so you might wonder, like, how does all this make sense? David, the father of Solomon, but yet his mother is Uriah's wife, and Uriah is this mighty warrior, which leads us right to where we are today. If you have your Bibles with you, if you're at home, wherever you may be, we're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 11, and we're going to learn a little bit about Uriah's wife and some of her stretch marks. 2 Samuel chapter 11, picking up in verse 1. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of his palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." You get right to the conflict of this story in this moment. And there's a lot of conflict going on. First and foremost, you've got King David. And who is King David? But he's a great warrior. This is the David that slayed Goliath. This is the David that led Saul's army. This is the David that destroyed the Philistines. This is David, the great warrior. And yet, how is our story introed here? It says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David, he stayed behind in Jerusalem. You can hear the calling of the conflict in this warrior's heart in this time when he knew he should be out leading his men. He knew he should be out fighting the fight alongside of them. But where does he find himself in this moment? He finds himself back in his palace, sitting on the sidelines, letting others do the work where his passion is, where his zeal is. It's no wonder he runs into this conflict headlong and he tries to rest, but there is no rest for him. And so he gets up and he's walking about on the palace roof, and then his eyes catch this woman who's bathing on her roof, and you think, well, what a hussy, right? Why is she out there naked on her roof? She shouldn't be doing that, right? So we think about all of that, but that would have been the place to bathe. When you think about it, all of the Middle Eastern there, the roofs are flat, and typically there's a little lip there, so nobody could look up and see. And really, the only building that would have been higher than the rooftops would have been the palace. But and there shouldn't have been a king in the palace, right? Where should he have been? He should have been out fighting the war. So here she is taking her bath the way she should be, and yet David, this conflicted man, he's walking about looking for something, and his eyes are set upon this beautiful woman who's bathing, and so then he asks the question, who is this beautiful woman? And we're given a little bit more context into this story. Well, she is the daughter of Eliam. Well, who's Eliam? Eliam is another one of David's mighty men, another one of David's 30. So you've got this great warrior's daughter that David is looking upon. And then the table turns even more. She's also the wife of Uriah the Hittite, your other mighty man, one of those 30. So two of the 30 men that David relies on most when it comes to battle are really being thrust right into this story in this moment. And that part of you is like, David, you're not going to do that, right? You can't do that because that's the daughter of one of your fellas, but more importantly, that's the wife of one of your guys, and so you're not going to do it. But we jump right back into that next step. He orders that she be brought to her. And we don't know what happens in all of this, and if she goes willingly or what she's thinking in this moment. Is she wondering as she's being summoned to the palace, did something happen to my husband? Is she wondering as she's being summoned to the palace, did something happen to my father? We also can't neglect the point that she's the granddaughter of a fellow by the name of Ahithophel, and Ahithophel was the chief counselor of David. So you've got all of these men connected directly to David that are also connected directly to this woman, Bathsheba. And here she is being brought to the palace, and her honor is removed from her as he seduces her. We don't really know the full story, what happens, but regardless, he sleeps with her. This woman conceives, and then word is sent to David that I am pregnant. It's pretty interesting how all of this goes down then. Because what would have happened in the ancient world if a woman was married and found to be pregnant and the baby daddy was off to war, like there would have been some major repercussions. Basically, this woman would have been dragged outside of the city and stoned to death. That's what should have befell Bathsheba in this moment. But David was tied into that as well. And imagine if you heard that your king was messing around with one of his mighty warriors' wives. Just think about the upheaval that could have caused. So David, he comes up with a plan. In his own brilliance, he comes up with a plan. He orders that Uriah be brought out of the battlefield, out of the war that he is in right now. And he comes back, and David said, oh, you're such a great warrior, and you've done such great things, and I just want you to take a little time. Why don't you go home? Hang out. Because he knows what's going to happen. You go home, you hang out with your wife, you haven't seen her in a little while, right? Stuff's going to happen, right? He's trying to pin this whole pregnancy thing back on Uriah in this moment. But Uriah is a man of integrity. And there was a vow, an oath that these great warriors would have taken before they went out into battle. And a part of that would be that they would abstain sexually until the war was over. You find that this man, Uriah, instead, he makes his way into the servants' court in the palace, and that's where he spends his time. David once more summons him, and this time he thinks, well, we'll have a big feast. I'll get him drunk. If he's drunk, he's going to make bad decisions, because that's what happens when we drink, right? We make bad decisions. Then he'll go home, and it'll be good. Uriah still, even in his drunkenness, is still wiser than this king, King David, a guy who's also called a man after God's own heart. And we see all of that come through, but not in this moment. Even men like this, they stumble and they fall. And so in all of this, we find that Uriah, he's not going through with the king's plan, so the king drafts a letter, and oddly enough, he gives it to Uriah to take back out to the battlefield to give to the commander Joab. And little does Uriah know, but that's his death sentence that he's carrying to the commander. And on that note, it's written that here's what I want you to do, Joab. You send Uriah and his company, send them directly to where the fighting is the fiercest. And then what I want you to do is pull back the ranks of everyone else. Joab goes along with it, as I guess any good commander would. And you find exactly what David hoped would happen happened. And the forces come down upon Uriah and his men, and him and his men are killed in battle. David wins this victory, or so he supposes. Bathsheba receives word that her husband has now been killed in battle, and she goes into mourning. After the mourning period had ended, David immediately takes her and brings her on as his wife. Think about the loss and the conflict and the struggle of all of this. This man that took your honor is now calling you to be his wife, and he's the king. You can't refuse him. You've lost your husband. You're pregnant. Where do you turn? We see then that the story continues on, and Bathsheba, she gives birth to this child, but as judgment for David's sin in all of this, the child ends up dying after 7 days. So you've got a woman who's lost her honor, who's lost her husband, and who's lost her child. And this is the conflict that these stretch marks are speaking to in this moment. But it's not where the story ends by God's grace, because despite the conflict that those stretch marks speak to, they also speak to incredible resilience. So a few weeks ago, I was able to be there as my son, Elijah, slayer of the prophets of Baal, came into the world. And many people think that birth is a beautiful thing. Y'all crazy. Because I've seen it multiple times, and I feel like I forgot what it was like last time. And I'm like, this this is horrifying. How did this come out of there? That shouldn't happen. That's not natural. And so you find this incredible resilience that God has only given to women, because Lord knows if men had to endure that, we wouldn't be here. Like, it would not happen. I love the proverb that says, a righteous man falls 7 times and yet rises again. And I wonder how many times we'd have to say a woman rises again, because, like, I've been sick and I'm dying when that happens. My wife done squeezed an 8-pound, 12-ounce baby out of that. Like, that shouldn't happen, right? And she did it with grace and blew my mind, right? And I've even seen it before. I'm like, wow. So this is the resilience that these marks, they speak to. And when we look back at Proverbs 31, isn't that what we find throughout the body of this poem that this king is writing to his mother? He speaks about this resilient woman that is a provider, that is a sustainer, that is an entrepreneur, that is a wife, that is a mother. Each day she greets it as a new challenge, and she is relentless in her pursuit to provide well for her family and those that she loves. She's revered and honored in society because of the resilience that she has. And when we look back at Bathsheba, we find that this is the point in the story where we see David's world begin falling apart, but we see everything falling into place in Bathsheba's life. Granted, she's lost her honor, her husband, her child, but better is ahead. And she endures, and she presses on. What do we see happen in David's family then? So the judgment that comes upon David in this moment, we see that his son Absalom, he kills his other son Amnon, because Amnon molested the sister of Absalom. And so there's this crazy stuff that goes on here. And then you see Absalom, he rebels and he seeks to usurp the throne from David. And David flees. And then this is where we enter Ahithophel, Bathsheba's granddad, because Bathsheba's granddad then sides with Absalom and says, hey, go out and kill David. Do you think he had an idea of what happened to his granddaughter? I think so. Then we see Absalom is eventually killed, and David suffers the loss of another child. And then we fast forward again, and we see his other son, Adonijah, who is the oldest at the moment, that he just claims the throne for his own when his father becomes ill and is on his deathbed. But Bathsheba, in all of this, she makes a way because she is resilient, and she makes a way for her son as well. So we jump ahead and we see David on his deathbed in this moment and enter Bathsheba and this scheme that her and the prophet Nathan develop. 1 Kings chapter 1, picking up in verse 15. So Bathsheba went to the king in his chamber. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was attending to the king. Bathsheba bowed down and paid homage to the king, and the king said, "What do you desire?" She said to him, "My lord, you swore to your servant by the Lord your God, saying, Solomon your son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. Now behold, Adonijah is king. Although you, my lord, the king, do not know it, he has sacrificed oxen, fattened cattle, and sheep in abundance, and has invited all the sons of the king, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army. But Solomon your servant he has not invited. And now, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you, to tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise, it will come to pass, when my lord the king sleeps with his fathers, that I and my son Solomon will be counted offenders." So in the ancient world, when a son would come along and take over the throne of his father, oftentimes what would happen is he would kill all of his brothers, because they would be the next in the line of the throne. And had he not killed them, they might kill him, and then they might take the throne. And so it was a pretty common practice in this day for maybe Adonijah, who would claim the throne, to just come along and wipe out all of his brothers, Solomon included. And then what would that have meant for Bathsheba in this moment? Likely death as well. She would have been thrown out, cast out. She wouldn't have been honored and revered. So she concocts this plan along with the prophet Nathan, because they know what God is leading Solomon to in this moment. They know what is ahead for him. And this is the resilience of this woman, Bathsheba. This is the resilience of a mother and the resilience of her love that she has for her children. Stretch marks speak directly to resilience. But that's not the end. They also speak directly of new life. If you can hear this, there are stretch marks that testify to your existence. In many different shapes and facets and forms, physically, mentally, emotionally. It may be your birth mother, it may be a foster mother, it may be a stepmother, it may be an aunt or a grandmother, it may be a sister, or it may be somebody that was just a stranger to the family until you came along. But there are stretch marks upon those women, and they usually come in the forms of gray hairs, right? There are stretch marks upon those women that speak to where you are today, to why you are today. This is the story that we've been given. And when you look back at Proverbs 31, we see this new life that is breathed, the joy that comes from it. Finishing out Proverbs 31, her children arise. And they call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women, they do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive. Beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. This is a story of new life. This is a poem of new life. And this is exactly what is given to each of us. This is exactly what Bathsheba experiences in this life that has been fraught with conflict and fraught with resilience. And you come to this place in 1 Kings chapter 2 where now you see Bathsheba. She's the queen mother in this moment. She is respected. She is influential. When people want things from the king, they go to Bathsheba because they know the influence that she has over her son. And despite all that she has endured, she was not a casualty of the conflict, but she rose in resilience, which enabled new life. She lost her honor, but she was brought to reverence. She lost her husband, but she was given a throne. She lost the son, but she raised a king. These are the stretch marks of this woman. And you know what? There are more stretch marks that speak to how much we're loved as well upon those women that brought us into the world. There are other stretch marks as well, and you see them by Jesus. His arms that were stretched out upon the cross, those nails that were driven through his hands, that were driven through his feet. You see him hanging and enduring in agony in that moment until his lungs have stretched to capacity and can no longer take in air. He breathes his last breath. He's taken down from the cross. He's placed in a tomb only to rise again 3 days later. The conflict, the resilience, and the new life that accompanies Jesus. Our mothers, they really epitomize the love of Jesus. They really testify to the man that he is and to what's been given for us. As our Father loves us so much that he willingly gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. The tragedy that you may be going through right now, the conflict that you may be experiencing right now, is simply making a way for the triumph that God has in store. The resilience that you embrace each day with will allow you to rise again. And it will offer you a brand new life, a brand new hope, a brand new opportunity. All because of Jesus. These are the stretch marks that give us new life. And this is the path that God uses. God uses imperfect people to present his perfect plan. And y'all, we get to be a part of it. How awesome is that? We have a moment right now in which we get to celebrate what's been given to us, what's been given for us. If you're here live, we have communion cups in your seat backs. Grab your communion cups. If you're at home, grab your Cheez-Its, grab your Cheetos, grab your goldfish crackers, grab your juice, whatever you have. Maybe that's what we need to do, and more people will come here if we have Cheez-Its for communion. I don't know. But this is the moment that testify to how much we're loved. We have the bread, and you see that Jesus gathered his disciples around as they were stretched. He broke that bread, and he said, "This is my body. It's been broken for you. Take and eat." As the supper concluded, he rose the cup, he lifted it, and he said, "This cup is my blood. It's been shed for you. Whenever you get together, do this in remembrance of me, for in it is the new covenant, and in that new covenant is the forgiveness of sins. Let my stretch marks testify to it. Take and drink." Let's pray. Father Grace, you are so good to us. So good to us that you have given us a model of your love, and we're able to call them mom or mother, grandma, nanny, aunt, sis, whatever name we may have for them. You've showed us the resilience that you have through the mothers that we've been given. And you've shown us the new life that comes from the love that they have to offer. The love that you have to offer. Lord, I pray that we may embrace those stretch marks that we all endure in our lives, Father, so that we may honor you, so that we may live a life well lived, so that we may recognize in all of this, Lord, that your grace is enough. And we may recognize the fact that King Lemuel in this prayer is likely King Solomon, and the Proverbs 31 woman is quite possibly his mother Bathsheba. Lord, lead us in your grace as you have led them. May we honor you with our lives. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. We're going to continue our worship through offering at this moment. If you are with us, we have bins and plates that you can drop them in on the way out. If you are online with us, you can go to the Give app or to our website, lehighchurch.org, and you can give there. And you know, giving and offering is all about your heart. God desires your heart, not your wallet. And he knows, though, that where your wallet is, that's where your heart is. And you all have shown up in such an incredible way over the course of this trial that we've had. And I'm just so blessed. And the elders, they want to share a little bit as well. So God bless you guys. And I can't wait to see you all again next week.
Good morning. Good morning, folks. On behalf of the elders, we had gotten together as the past 6 or 7 weeks that we've all been quarantined and doing things from home. And as we heard the things that God has been doing here, the things that you guys have been doing here, we tried to figure out a way to say thank you. And the word thanks just wasn't enough. You heard about the meals. If you're sitting in here and if you visit the church within the following weeks to come, or you're watching from home, you'll see the sanctuary's been redone, the wall's been redone. This is all done while the church was closed. All this work, there was Carl and volunteers coming in, making sure this place looked good for us when we come here to worship. Home groups still met together. Home groups were meeting through Zoom and different social media platforms. People were staying in touch over the phone. and doing whatever they had to do to make sure that this church stayed together, which we did. You heard the stories. The T-shirts you see a lot of the people in the sanctuary wearing, these T-shirts were bought. There were about 52 bought, and over 40 sold, 40 or more. And the proceeds for these churches were what helped fund feeding the local families in the area, the children and the parents that needed food. Tithing and giving. You guys have set the bar really high. Tithing and giving, over the past 6 or 7 weeks, you've actually pushed the church and outdone ourselves from when we were open. So your guys' heart and the Spirit moved through the church, and the church hasn't had to shut anything down. The church hasn't had to let anyone go. The lights are still on. There's a lot of businesses out there that can't say that, but we can, because God worked through us, and we allowed him, and we said yes. Attendance. If you were back in quarantine last week and the weeks before, you either watched through Facebook or YouTube, and the peak viewership on each platform was 70. So 70 plus 70 is 140. Then the average people watching per platform or per screen was 2.5. That was a lot of people watching church from home. So even though we couldn't be here together as a family, we made sure that we saw the sermon and we made sure that we stayed together the best we could. And that's just another indication of where our heart is and how God is working throughout this group here. You heard this morning, Nick, I was going to announce we gave out 2,300 meals, but I just got updated this morning. It's now over 8,000 meals. We gave out 8,000 meals to people in this community. We have the name Lehigh Acres in the name of this church, and we're serving Lehigh Acres. They're going to come to know that this is a place to go to meet Jesus and to find out what love is. And it's you guys here and you guys watching at home that are making that happen and letting that voice be heard. You guys have set the bar pretty high, as I said. Thanks is not enough. God is working here. Romans 8:31b says, if God is with us, who can be against us? Well, we've shown what we can do when God is with us. And I'm telling you, by what we're seeing and what's going on, God is with us, and it is good.
Please stand with us.
Step out of the grave, break into the wild freedom. There is freedom. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. There is